Sparxie just released not too long ago on Asia servers and is still upcoming on Europe and NA servers. Today I'm here with the should you or should you not summon for her. Similar to other ones, I will be mainly talking about her kit, where she excels, her future potential, and then finally reasons why you should or should not summon. Stuck grinding in Honkai Star Rail? Need Stellar Jades fast? We've got you covered. Head over to U7 Buy, your ultimate gaming hub for save fast and cheap in-game top-ups. Whether it's Star Rail or your other favorite games, U7 delivers instantly and players love it. Check out their Trustpilot reviews, they're actually top ranked. On the Honkai Star Rail direct top-up page, you can recharge your account in seconds. For example, 8080 Ononeric shards cost $99.99 in the official store, but on U7 Buy, you can see here it's way cheaper. Just pick your server, enter UID, pay securely, and boom, your account is instantly loaded. Want extra savings? Use code PRETSR at checkout for 5% off, perfect for last minute pulls, battle passes, or surprising a friend. And here's a bonus. If you spend $80 a month on U7 Buy, you can grab the Honkai Star Rail Express Pass for only 1 cent, which is nearly free. Click on the link in my description, recharge fast, save more, and keep blazing those trails. So as we do know, Sparxie is the second edition of the Elation path characters, and she is going to effectively be functioning as a main DPS for the team, at least until we get more characters that are actually made as a main DPS for Elation teams. Sparxie's playstyle is going to be another one of the instances of skill point consumption, as she is really able to consume as many skill points as you can until you run out of skill points to repeatedly trigger engagement farming, which will give you punchline generation, and if you're lucky, you can get 2 punchline points and 2 skill points back, allowing you to cast the skill twice. Once you're out, you launch a enhanced basic attack, which also deals a lot of damage. On top of all of Sparxie's damage potential, she actually does have some form of support in her base kit and also her vertical investment that is early on. Her base kit that provides support for the entire team is giving crit damage based off punchline owned, which is increasing everyone's crit damage by 8% up to a maximum of 80% for every 1 punchline you do own. So you only need to own 10 punchline, which is very easy, so it really just becomes a free 80% crit damage for the team, as Sparxie herself generates so much punchline and probably will be the character to generate the most punchline throughout the entirety of 4.x in the Elation meta. But even without her, just with someone like Yao Guang, you can honestly get to 10 pretty easily. So having 10 is going to be just extremely simple, so it just becomes a free 80% crit damage for the team. So for now, that's obviously going to impact her, as it's going to be further crit damage, and then anyone on the team also doing some form of damage, so someone like Yao Guang herself, or the supports that do some form of damage like Cypher or Chibi, they will also be getting an increase. Of course, one of her biggest forms of damage is going to come from her own Elation skill, which deals a bunch of fire Elation damage instances to all enemies, and that's where you're going to see the biggest damage overall. Of course, the engagement farming, triggering, and using the enhanced basic attack is what you see mostly, but the Elation skill is going to be the biggest damage you do overall see. To top it all off, to help with skill points, she is able to actually give herself something called Thrill. Thrill is practically just a free skill point that Sparxie is able to use in the place of skill points. So when you start triggering the engagement farming with their skill, you are able to consume it Thrill instead of SP. The ways to get that is by having more Elation characters on the team and then using ultimate with Sparxie. Unfortunately, that's only going to be able to be granting 1 for now. Until we get a 3rd Elation character, you are going to be only able to get 1. Once you do get the 3rd Elation character, you can get up to 4. Her ultimate also does give more punchline based off Elation characters on the team alongside the throw, thanks to her bonus trace. So she's able to offset her own skill point consumption while also being able to generate more punchline based off more Elation characters on the team. Once again, unfortunately unable to be fully utilized until the 3rd Elation character is released. So as we can see, she does have a good amount of potential as her actual main DPS capabilities, just doing good damage off her enhanced basic attack. And of course, the Elation skill itself is going to do a bunch of damage. But what is the second role she has? As you can tell, she does have the obvious support with the 80% crit damage, but you might just scoff that and be like, oh, it's just like, you know, they're giving some form of support. No, I do have a whole video dedicated to this about Sparxie's main role, but TLDR, one of the biggest things that she is going to have is her extreme ability to generate punchline. As I did mention, triggering engagement farming, so every time you do use a skill, you're going to be able to grant a punchline, which of course, depending on your team and investment, can be more and more. Like if the regular spark goes on your team, which right now, if you are running Sparxie, you will have. In the future, if you have that, light cones that increase skill points such as her own. Nonetheless, you are going to be able to trigger her skill over 5 times to grant you a bunch, which is practically going to net you 7+ punchline no matter the team you do have. And then if you have a team where it's like Sparkle plus Sparxie has Lycone, you're going to be able to get over 10 each time, which of course can go even further depending on how lucky you are. and also if you have throw stacks to consume as well. Her punchline generation is going to be through the roof. She is most likely going to have the biggest punchline generation that you can get throughout any of the 4.x characters, and that is going to be her biggest value, especially in the future, since punchline generation is going to be one of the biggest ways to increase elation damage. More punchline you get, the significant increase to overall instant and elation skills will be doing. So one of her biggest roles outside of doing damage herself, because right now she's going to be the focus as a main DPS. Eventually she's going to be pushed to a sub DPS where she still does solid damage on her turn with the whole engagement farming stuff, but her main thing is 1, the support she is able to provide with the crit damage, and then 2, mainly the punchline generation. Now a little bit on her vertical investment, her S1 is mainly the one you want to look at, providing Sparxie herself or the wearer, in this case 48% crit damage, and every elation character on the team is going to allow the skill point upper limit to increase by 1 up to 3. So I did mention 1 previously, that was just including if Sparxie is on the team, so if you have Sparxie plus Yaguang, you can get 2, and then a future elation character up to 3. Instead of 5, you will have up to 8 skill points. So a massive increase there, allowing you to spam skill more. And then every skill point the wearer does consumes enables elation damage dealt by this unit to ignore 5% of the enemy target's defense, stacking up to 4 times. And if consuming 4 or more, which is not going to be a problem, Sparxie herself will be able to gain stream promo, which will increase the entire team's elation by 20%. So increasing elation is just going to be overall good for any time you are dealing elation damage. So anyone on the team doing elation damage is going to get a big increase there. So Lycon, of course, going to be great for her damage, increasing the crit damage she's able to get just for a free stick, providing up to a 20% defense ignore, and also increasing the skill point limit for you to spam more engagement farming. And then on the flip side, we have her E1. This dupe is alright. When Aha Instant ends, gains 5 punchline. For every 1 punchline owed, increases all type res pen for all allies by 1.5% up to 15%. This ties perfectly into her actual trace, which needs 10 punchline to give the full 80% crit damage. For this, you would just need the 10 punchline to give everyone 15% all-type res pen at the same time. So again, not a problem, and free 15% all-type res pen, which does significantly impact all kinds of damage, including elation. So it is still definitely on the solid side. Of course, her Lycon, especially with the lack of Lycons to use on her, makes her Lycon the overall winner, but both are actually very solid, especially for her more sub DPS capabilities when it comes to her E1, and then mainly for both when it comes to her S1. And now, reasons why you should or should not summon. So reasons why you should summon: if you are interested in making her a main DPS, then of course you would want to pull her. Of course, in that case, you would want to make sure you are in need of a main DPS. If you just want to pull for 1, but you already have 2 teams that are set, or 3 if you do anomaly, and you're already clearing at a very solid pace, and you wouldn't necessarily have another need to build a team around her. Another big recommendation is the fact that you did pull for Yaguang. No matter the team you do make, Sparxie without Yaguang is going to take a significant dip in overall potential, so I don't necessarily recommend pulling Sparxie if you don't have Yaguang, especially if you are looking at main DPS Sparxie. It's a little different if you're trying to pull her just to have her as a sub DPS for a potential future Elation team, but if you actually want to run Sparxie as the main DPS, as that's what she's going to do right now, make sure you do have Yaguang, otherwise you are going to see a very, very big dip in performance. Tying into that, if you are interested in the upcoming Elation stuff, and you want to take the gamble that Sparxie is going to be indeed the one to generate a bunch of punchline for the future, and when the future DPSs do come out, in that case, she would also just be good pickup to have, because even if she might not be on the best team, her whole punchline generation stuff is going to be good, assuming that the main DPS in the future doesn't also consume a bunch of skill points, but I highly doubt they will. They probably will just consume at a normal amount. So that lets Sparxie mostly be able to spam a bunch of skill point generation, and then on top of that, she's going to get more thorough with the more Elation characters on the team. So even if in the future where Sparkle is not on the team with Sparxie, she's going to have her own ways to continuously generate. So if you want to pull her for those future teams, then of course feel free to do so. Then again, just quickly re-highlighting what I mentioned for the main DPS stuff. If you want to pull her for main DPS, 1, ensure you do have Yaguang. Sparkle, like the regular one, is also going to be a very big increase, but not as bad as missing Yaguang. You mostly would want to have Yaguang over having Sparkle. If you have both, of course, you're able to generate the best team you can, but you can honestly get by if you do have Yaguang, even if you are missing Sparkle. It won't be as good, of course, as our best main DPS team, but it still will be fine. And then reasons why you shouldn't summon: 1 is if you did end up skipping Yaguang, and you're not in total need of another main DPS, which I guess are 2 separate points. If you don't really need a main DPS, then of course you wouldn't really need to pull Sparxie for that role. And then if you skip Yaguang, I don't necessarily recommend Sparxie, because she is again going to see a big dip in performance. Maybe in the future when there are full Elation teams, Sparxie might not actually be with Yaguang, But for now, her main role is a main DPS, as that's all she can really be. There's nothing for her to really be a sub DPS for, unless you're a crackhead like me running a high invested in hyper carry Yao Guang, which is going to be not 99% of the people that own Yao Guang. So for the most part, if you do skip Yao Guang, I don't necessarily recommend pulling Sparxie, as the performance will just not be up to par. So you definitely still will be able to clear it and such, but it is just generally not recommended, especially in the future, where it's going to fall off very quickly. Another reason is if you are interested in Elation, maybe you even already have someone like Yao Guang, but you're not sure if Sparxie is going to make it to the teams that you do want in the future, and you are mainly interested in like a rerun. I do highly recommend that for a lot of people too. I made videos in the past talking about that, but for both Yao Guang and Sparxie actually, and that still does remain true. Once we do get proper Elation characters, these two characters will not be too far off rerunning. And so if you want to just do the thing where you just wait for the rerun, see if they are on the team, maybe you won't be able to use the unit at the full potential that you do want to in like the future main DPS Elation characters, but just waiting a patch, maybe 2 patches max, they probably will be back, and then you can pick them up, and then you will have the team. And if they're not on the team and you pull them now and you're afraid of the whole situation, it's like, oh well, I did that for no reason, that is a very solid reasoning to skip and just wait for a rerun. So nonetheless, if you don't have Yao Guang, I don't necessarily recommend picking up Sparxie, as the main DPS is just not going to be all there. And then when it comes to her sub DPS role, if you aren't really sure if she's going to be on the teams, definitely feel free to save for a rerun. That is definitely the best thing you can do, especially if you are a free-to-play or low spender. Anyway, that does bring this video to a close, talking about what Sparxie does and what makes her good in her roles, her main sub DPS and punchline generator role that she probably will get pushed into, a brief talk about her vertical investment of E1 and S1 when it comes to early investment at least, and then finally reasons why you should or should not summon. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all the types of Star content, and I'll see you later. Peace out.